Police charge Kingston man with murder in fatal staged robbery. A multi-pronged investigation by sleuths from the Kingston Eastern Police Division has led to a series of serious charges against a 20-year-old man in connection with a fatal shooting and fire that claimed the life of a taxi operator earlier this year. Demoy Byfield of Alexander Street, Kingston, now faces charges of murder, conspiracy to murder, possession of a prohibited weapon, using a firearm to commit a felony, and malicious destruction of property. The charges stem from a violent incident that unfolded in the early hours of Saturday, January 25, on McWhinney Street. The victim has been identified as a 24-year-old Timoy Malcolm, a taxi operator of Windward Road, Kingston 2. According to reports from the Ellison Road Police, the tragedy began around 12:15 a.m. Byfield and several accomplices allegedly staged a robbery by using plastic barrels and other debris to block the path of oncoming vehicles. Timoy Malcolm, driving along the roadway, was forced to a stop. He was immediately approached by the armed group. In a desperate bid to escape, Malcolm reversed his vehicle. The assailants opened fire, causing the taxi driver to lose control and collide with a nearby utility pole. The impact was severe, resulting in the car becoming engulfed in flames. Upon being summoned, the police and fire department extinguished the blaze. The scene was processed by investigators, and Malcolm's charred remains were recovered and transported to the morgue for a post-mortem examination. An intensive investigation was launched in the wake of the crime. During the course of the probe, Demoy Byfield was arrested in relation to the seizure of a prohibited weapon. The weapon was submitted for forensic analysis, where a ballistic comparison was conducted. The results provided a critical breakthrough. The firearm found in Byfield's possession was definitively matched to the one used in the murder of Timoy Malcolm. Following this conclusive evidence, and after providing a formal caution statement to the police, Byfield was charged on Thursday, October 30. A court date for the accused is now being finalized as the judicial process begins. International Aid Agency pledges to repair 50,000 roofs in hurricane-hit Jamaica. In a significant boost to recovery efforts, the Global Empowerment Mission (GEM), a leading international disaster relief agency, has committed to repairing and replacing up to 50,000 roofs across southwestern Jamaica, an area devastated by Hurricane Melissa. The pledge was announced by GEM's founder and president, Michael Capone, during a media briefing at the office of the Prime Minister on Friday. Capone arrived in Jamaica last Thursday with a team to spearhead the assessment and initial response. "We are committed to helping the people of Jamaica get back on their feet," Capone stated, outlining the massive scale of the roofing initiative, aimed at providing safe and secure shelter for tens of thousands of affected residents. Capone explained that GEM is a Florida-based charity and the largest international disaster agency in the world, currently operating in 74 countries and territories, including conflict zones like Gaza and Ukraine. The organization brings extensive expertise in large-scale humanitarian logistics to the Jamaican recovery effort. The team has moved swiftly since its arrival, after visiting a transitional center in Kingston to distribute care packages last Thursday. They traveled on Saturday to the severely impacted towns of Black River, in St. Elizabeth, and White House in Westmoreland. The tour was conducted alongside representatives from the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management and the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, allowing for a first-hand assessment of the damage and direct engagement with affected communities. This commitment from GEM represents one of the largest international interventions for post-hurricane reconstruction, directly addressing one of the most critical needs. Government turns to Starlink to restore critical ATM and communication services. In a decisive move to resolve the widespread communication outages plaguing the island, the Jamaican government, in partnership with telecommunications providers, is deploying satellite technology from Starlink to restore functionality to automated teller machines and other critical services. The announcement was made by Telecommunications Minister Darrell Vaz following a high-level meeting that included the police commissioner and the head of disaster response at Starlink, the American-operated satellite internet constellation. Minister Vaz disclosed that Jamaica is set to receive over 600 Starlink devices, with their distribution being strategically prioritized to areas of greatest need. The immediate focus will be on re-establishing connectivity for ATM networks, which have been largely inoperable due to damaged terrestrial infrastructure, creating a critical cash shortage for residents. The deployment of Starlink's low Earth orbit satellites provides a rapid and resilient alternative to traditional fiber and cellular networks, which are often vulnerable to destruction during severe weather events like Hurricane Melissa. This technology will enable a reliable internet connection for essential services, bypassing the need for repaired ground lines. This initiative represents a significant step in the country's recovery efforts, aiming to restore not only financial services, but also the broader communication infrastructure vital for coordination and public safety in the aftermath of the disaster. The Jamaica Defense Force has issued an urgent appeal to residents in communities severely impacted by Hurricane Melissa, seeking their partnership in a critical mission to clear debris from public spaces to facilitate vital aerial operations. With many areas still cut off due to storm-damaged roads, helicopters have become the primary lifeline for delivering humanitarian aid and conducting search and rescue missions. The JDF is asking residents to assist in clearing football fields, community centers, and other large open spaces to create safe landing zones for these aircraft. The aftermath of Hurricane Melissa has left numerous communities isolated, making traditional ground-based relief efforts challenging. Aerial operations are now essential for transporting emergency supplies, medical teams, and for evacuating the injured. By clearing these designated open areas, residents can directly contribute to expediting the delivery of life-saving assistance and enable search and rescue teams to operate more efficiently and effectively across the hardest-hit regions.
You know, bubbles are invisible to those who live in them, right? And sometimes it's those who are standing outside who can see them most clearly. Now, what I'm about to say may be a little unnerving, but I want you to know that it comes from a place of love and without judgment. So my birth certificate says Retreat St. Mary. I'm a rural country girl at heart. My father was a farmer, my mother a hairdresser in Ocho. And yeah, we lived by the river in Retreat. And so I was surrounded by community. I was built by the community. That was my anchor. I had more aunties than I could count, and not by blood, but by heart, by value system, by morale. And my earliest memory is being 3 years old, being held by some of those aunties, walking up a steep hill to a grave digging. And it sounds somber, maybe, people might not understand why grave diggings were so important in rural Jamaica, but it was about community. And I remember the laughter, I remember the singing, the food shared hand to hand, people cooking. And even in the grief, there was love because they came together to dig someone's grave. Even in that loss, there was community. And when we moved to Kingston later on, when I was older, every summer, my parents would send me back to St. Mary, to the hills, to my cousins, to the laughter, to the smell of wood smoke and food cooking outside, and earth when it was wet after rain. We climbed every tree. We cooked in paint pans. We played by the beach. We caught penny wallies at night. We never went to sleep. That was freedom, and we loved it. Tix Tech Week. But that was a Jamaica I knew. That's the Jamaica I know. And you see, I'm and will always be a rural country girl with a Kingston address. It's just my soul. And that balance, that duality has really shaped who I am, what you see, and how I see this island and our people. Because the truth is, much of who we are as Jamaicans, or kindness, or humility, or resilience, or pride, or dignity, was built in those small rural communities where people shared what little they had. And so my entire life has been spent roaming inner carvings of Jamaica, learning, helping. And when I became a member of parliament, I saw it repeatedly. You know, when a woman came and sat in front of me and said, "Boy, MP, I beg a few sheets of zinc and some ply." Why? Come one bill, go one room for me and I picked it in. And even in that moment, she still said, "Miss Lisa, I'm gonna manage." And I say, "You sure?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm gonna manage, no worry about it." And that is the culture. People resilient, people working, farmers sharing. When them dig a piece of yam, they make sure Miss Elsie down there so get peace if she don't have none. And if them cut piece of pumpkin and them know somebody down the road don't have, they're gonna send a piece to their neighbor so nobody would go hungry. That's the Jamaica I know. That's the Jamaica I love. And that's why I talk about the bubble, the invisible walls that separate us, city from country, privilege from poverty, Kingston from almost everywhere else. Because Hurricane Melissa didn't just tear through homes in the southwest and northwest of this country. It stripped away illusions. It showed us how fragile our divisions are. And I believe, whether by divine intervention or some kind of ancestral grace, Jamaica was not entirely decimated. And I believe that was not by accident. It is and was a reminder, a divine reminder of our shared humanity and how we are as Jamaicans and what we need to be to one another and our shared responsibility. So yes, now we stand at a watershed moment, because as we rebuild roofs and homes and roads, we must also rebuild our sense of belonging to one another. This is why I want to say, and forgive me, I'm not being judgmental, because we all in our own way handle grief differently, but we must never be dissonant. And so that's why I'm saying every Kingstonian, yes, every one of us that has a Kingston address has an obligation to give something, whether it is a day in volunteering in the West, or to help a family in some way recover in the Northwest or Southwest. Every Kingston student or child, from a basic school to a secondary school, has a responsibility to write a letter, draw a picture, send a note to another child who has lost everything. Because the truth is, they are our sisters. They're our brothers. They're our mothers. They're our fathers. They're the ones that feed us. They keep our economy going. They're our grandparents, and there would be no us without them. So you see, as we look around the island, yeah, we're bruised, but we're not unbroken. And so we need to remember this, that our strength as Jamaicans, even in the world, our strength has never been in our wealth or our walls, but in our willingness to love each other through the storm. Because, yeah, bubbles are beautiful. You can see them, they shimmer, they glisten in the light from the outside. You can't see them if you're inside, but they're fragile. And sometimes they must burst for us to truly see one another again. And maybe that's what this moment is about. It's a divine reminder to step outside the bubble, to reach across the divides of class and comfort, and yes, to stand again in the soil of our shared humanity. Because in the end, Jamaica has never been defined by its storms, but by the spirit that carries us through them. The same spirit that built this nation from riverbank and red dirt, from faith, from struggle, from love. And when we choose to see each other clearly, not through walls, not through bubbles, not through fear, but through the eyes of compassion, yeah, that's when Jamaica becomes whole again. And that's when we will not only rebuild stronger, but we will reset our humanity longer.